And we are live. Welcome to Rice TVX and Pimpy's Investment Chat. This is a live episode of the Rice Report, an economic roundtable featuring the chief market analyst at ITM Trading, Miss Lynette Zang, who's going to be appearing with me and Pimpy for the third time. Now, this is a collaboration between both of our channels. It's going to be live streaming right now on Rice TVX, Rice TVX2, the backup channel, and also on Odyssey.com. So make sure you're following both me and Pimpy on Odyssey, where we have backups of all of our videos. And depending on where you're watching us on YouTube, make sure you not only subscribe to Pimpy's channel, my channel, Rice TVX, but also make sure you're subscribed to Lynette Zang's ITM Trading channel as well. We're going to go ahead and get this show started. Pimpy's going to be joining us here a little bit late, but he'll be on the stream. And real quick, a few messages from the sponsors of Rice TVX.
BitSwap is the hottest new way to trade tokens. Crawling all the top decentralized exchanges, BitSwap will get you the very best price and value for your trades. BitSwap is changing the game. Try it now at bitswapdex.com.
Awesome. Good times. Looks like Pimpy is here. So we're going to be getting Pimpy here in just a moment. Just going to do a real quick screen share, adding this in. So real quick, I want to encourage people to make sure, in case you don't know, I did get a strike and so did Pimpy. So we weren't able to make some videos. My strike ended this past Saturday, and you would have known that if you would have signed up on my mailing list. So I encourage you to go over to ricetvx.com and sign up on the mailing list. Be sure you're following the backup channel, Rice TVX2, the sequel. Links are down below. I encourage you to support what I do on Patreon. I put up early access to videos and exclusive content. And here is links to mine and Pimpy's Odyssey channels. And as you see, we're live streaming right now on Odyssey.com. Also, I'm going to have links down below for ITM Trading's YouTube channel, as well as the ITMTrading.com website. So let me go ahead and go back to the next screen, juggle this thing, pull in my partner, my brother from another mother, Mr. Pimpy. What's going on, my friend?
Rice, sir, how are you?
I'm doing excellent. It's good seeing you.
Man, you want to talk about making time?
Yeah, you told me you had like a little emergency. You went out of town, and yeah, I'm glad that you made it. We had to delay it 15 minutes and you made it on time, man. But I guess let's go ahead and without further ado, bring in our guest of honor coming and joining us for the third time. I don't know what appearance it is as far as numbers on my channel, but third time with Pimpy, Rice TVX, and Miss Lynette Zang from ITM Trading. Lynette, thank you for joining us today. How are you?
I'm excellent and very happy to be here. Thank you for having me, you guys.
Again,
Hi, Pimpy.
It's going to be a fun conversation.
I hate myself this time.
Oh, no, don't. It's much more fun when you don't.
Thank you.
I mean, we're just trying our best to not talk over the top of each other because a lot of people have been complaining about that. I know that we're all good with it, but it's all of us, equally more of me and you, but for sure. But we had a lot we wanted to talk about with you, Lynette.
Oh, good Lord, yeah.
We have, so I don't know where, I want to kind of give you some ideas of topics and then let you choose where to begin.
Just dive in.
We have some CBDCs, GovCoins, FedCoin, digital currencies. We have inflation that we're in the midst of. Pimpy wanted to talk about Basel III, the silver shortage, and then I wanted to even touch on. I don't know if you've watched George Gammon's recent videos about the reverse repos or about the repo markets, the reverse repurchases, and the fact that QE isn't real and it's a smoke and mirrors game.
Well, of course it is. It's all about confidence, right? It's a con game.
Well, it's really interesting the way he shows that the Fed and the banks are just basically sharing the same balance sheet.
Yeah.
and nothing is changing on anybody's sides. It's like literally just a smoke and mirrors game. And he says that he doesn't even think a lot of people that are paying attention to finances and economics are even seeing this kind of minute detail that people aren't catching just because of so much other stuff going on.
Oh, there's a tremendous amount of things that are going on, but it is all smoke and mirrors, and it is all just to keep this game going until they're ready to make the shift.
Which who knows when.
Would you agree that they really count on the ignorance of the public to get away with what they do?
A bazillion percent, I agree with that. A bazillion percent. I will probably see that in terms of dollars before too long.
So where do you want to begin the conversation with all those different topics?
Well, you know, you can take your pick on any of them because they're all a great place to start. I mean, inflation is what people are really talking about now,
right,
because it's becoming so much more obvious. But I was just a little bit earlier still looking at the most current monetary velocity chart. And, you know, people are, even though all of these retail numbers are coming in, everything is coming in like, hey, the whole economy, the global economy is just booming and the US economy is just booming. And granted, people are tired of being cooped up. They want to go out, they want to enjoy their lives and try and create some level of normalcy. But I'm kind of wondering why we are not seeing a prolonged spike or even a spike. There was a small spike and it's downturned again in the monetary velocity chart, because I think that's really what's going to tell us when the hyperinflation is kicking into gear, and when that so much sought after inflation, you know, it's those expectations.
So do you see us actually hitting a hyperinflationary period?
Yes, I do.
Okay, because I mean, a lot of people are still speculating that we may not get to that point because of, you know, the idea that if they could switch over, if they could switch over to the central bank digital currency, if they could switch everything over 100% digital, could they get a slight control over this?
What they can get control over when they go to a digital currency is your direct behavior. What they're wanting is inflation. But, you know, from everything that I have been able to dig out, the ability to create those digital, the Fed coin or the digital dollar is based on the same thing that creating the current fiat dollar, whatever you want to call it,
right?
Still based on the same thing. It's still based on the ability to create debt. And so if they shift, people think that shifting from the US dollar to the digital dollar will actually be the reset. And it won't be. Right. They have to get rid of this debt. They have to, especially if they are basing the new system on what they were basing the old system. Now, if I could have dug out somewhere that they're going to base the creation on something else, we still have to get rid of this debt. I mean, at the end of the day, whether you're a government, a corporation, or an individual, when you have debt, you either have to service it, you have to roll it over, or you have to default on it. You know, take your pick. But you still, at the end of the day, you still have to deal with it. So I hope the masses will be lulled into that false sense of security. But keep in mind that globally, on average, 3 resets happen before you go into, that's the final one. It's the last one is typically the final one. We might have more, we might have less. I mean, I can't tell you that because I don't know. You know, I can't see the future, but based on the past, if they shift into the digital dollar, it's just about control. It's not really about changing behavior and wiping out all of that debt yet.
Well, that leads me into a part. One of the first videos that I ever saw that you did, Lynette, was on, you did this video showing some correlation between the history of when gold and silver went up versus our stock crashes. And you were saying, hey, everybody, what they do is they artificially pump up riskier assets, keeping everybody away from gold and silver. And then all of a sudden it just crashes. And the poor people who get caught up in the hype about the stock shooting up, they don't realize what's really going on. The elite are moving into the so-called gold and silver, while you're so hyped over, hey, this one asset that's going up, and then your money's in it, and then boom. And you did this video showing the history of this, that every time we had a crash, it would artificially get pumped, the stock market, and then they would just take the rug right out from underneath you. And I said, look, you guys, what Lynette was saying is happening now again, right now again. And as much as you guys get all hyped up about cryptocurrencies, and I want to believe in the principles and what they want to do, but the truth of the matter is EB did a video with Danella from Strawberries just the other day, and he told you, if you think in your wildest dreams that this thing is private and it's not manipulated, then you're just dreaming. So in your opinion, is there any difference between cryptocurrencies and what we see in the stock market right now?
No. And I've been saying that since 2009, when they came out magically with Bitcoin, the beginning of the year, January, and then in March, all of a sudden they started the QE. And, I knew it when I saw it, that it is a tool to distract people. And what do they call it? The digital gold. This is the digital gold, right? And it's not. Look at how Wall Street and has embraced creating all of these products, and Bitcoin and all of the other cryptocurrencies. Who's really going to be left holding the bag? I mean, I know we're going to end up with a digital currency because it gives the powers that be so much. I mean, it gives them total control, really, unless you have physical gold and silver outside of the system. But, look at what's happening right now with the advent.
Can we stop that, Lynette? In your opinion, can people do something to keep us from going into that 100% digital currency?
I hope so, Pimpy.
I mean, it would take enough people standing up, but unfortunately, we've got more people that are willing to comply with whatever is being asked versus not complying. So, I see people just kind of going along with the show until you get enough people standing up. It's that simple saying that when enough people take a stand, nothing can stand against the people. I just don't feel like we have enough people to take a stand to be effective right now. And part of it's educating people, though. Now, I did want to.
And I think.
Sorry.
I was going to say, I'm encouraging people to buy as much physical gold and silver as possible, so that they are outside of the system, so that if you want to prepare yourself to fight this, you need to have something outside of the system. Because if you don't, that means you're relying on a system. They're trying to put us in 100%. You can't fight. How are you going to fight?
How are you going to fight? And let's take that one step further, because it isn't only gold and silver that helps you be out of the monetary system. But you also need to be as independent as possible. Look at what happened to the grocery stores. Yep. And food is the single biggest issue for people going through this. We got a little sip of that. But what, did the supply chains magically, heal again? No,
it's not over. But what that goes back to your motto. What is your motto?
Food, water, energy, security, barterability, wealth preservation, community, and shelter.
Beautiful.
And I preach that all the time. I say, remember what Lynette said, and I preach it all the time. It's so important. I tell people all the time that the very same thing you do. And so I love that. And I just, so you know, I copied it because it makes perfectly good sense.
I'm honored. You're welcome to copy it, because really we need enough people. And it is a growing movement, in all areas. And I've personally been really encouraged, because I've been doing a number of younger interviews, or interviews with younger hosts, like in their 20s and early 30s, and in that area, because that's really where our hope is. It's not you know, it's not really, you guys are younger than I am, but it's not in my age range. We're already used to privacy, but it's in that younger group that has been taught to give up all privacy.
Yeah.
So I do have hope. I will say that.
No, it's scary how easy and willingly they are to do it. Again, I think cryptocurrencies were first. I know my subscribers don't like when I say this. I say any disruptive technology before it's out there in the public, trust me, it's already been invented, gone through, beat up, ran through by the government before it's introduced to the public. That includes cryptocurrencies.
That includes CBDCs and FedCoin.
Yeah, it's already been out there. So they find ways to introduce it to you, peer-to-peer, total anonymity, no taxes, no regulations. I said, if you think it's going to stick that way, you're sadly mistaken. And sure enough, taxes, no anonymity. So they are keeping track of everything you do. Now we're getting regulations. I go, now people are cheering when banks support their favorite cryptocurrencies. I go, that's so, the hypocrisy of that is we're trying to get away from the banks, but then you cheer when your bank adopts your cryptocurrencies. It's like, no.
We're going to have, like I said, we're going to have to do a conversation about cryptocurrencies. But Lynette, let me ask you, as far as when we talk about the inflation and you're talking about hyperinflation, do you see us hitting this inflationary depression before a reset? Are we even going to hit a depression?
Oh, yes. Well, you know, people always say, well, what about deflation? And what would be deflationary, right? The stock market going down, the real estate market going down, the bond market going down, you know, that would be deflationary. And there's only one way, as we've experienced, there's only one way to fight that deflation, and that is with more inflation. So it doesn't really matter what part we're on. It's the same coin. And there's no other. When something only happens one way, it's pretty simple to see what is the most likely outcome.
Right. So where are we sitting at from your perspective, being that you work for a precious metals dealer, ITM trading? Where are we at with the supply, like physical supply of silver currently?
Oh, well, look, this has been happening. This is not new news. The physical supply of silver, look, if you have SLV, the silver ETF, that comes out and changes their prospectus because they can't put a basket of silver together, what does that tell you? I mean, that's probably the single most telling thing that there is.
Right.
Let's do this quietly, right? So,
and shout out to John Adams for exposing so many of these people that have that silver pool and saying that they can't cover it. Chris Marcus for showing the perspective that said, hey, if we don't have enough silver, then we'll settle with the one damn thing we're trying to get away from, which is the fiat dollar. I don't want your fiat dollar. I want the silver. So the second squeeze that was coordinated, of course, they went to physical silver, and I was happy to see that. But the fact that the LBMA came out and said, oh, you know, we actually are short. And then all of a sudden our U.S. Mint saying there's a delay in sending out the Morgan dollars because there's a worldwide shortage on silver. I was like, are these people literally admitting this to everybody? I can't believe this.
But the news isn't reporting it, like, because as far as the reason I wanted to ask,
they're not going to.
We heard something about the silver short squeeze when all that stuff was going on, and then the conversation just kind of died out. And it hasn't. There's been a little bit of things that I've been hearing. But that's why I've been trying to ask as many different people that are dealing with actual precious metals or have their own dealer so that they can tell me what the supply actually looks like from their perspective.
Well, you know, I don't work directly with the public anymore. So that's actually a better question for Eric. But what I do know is that we do not have the same choices that we had 2 years ago or even a year ago.
Right.
And so what does that tell you? You know, we're counting on the secondary market, and the secondary market is not selling it. When they buy it, I'm not selling my gold or silver, either one. Right?
No, I wouldn't.
And there's a finite amount, unlike the paper market. They can make as much of it as they want.
True.
I've noticed on the comics inventory how much is depleted just since the beginning of this year.
Mm-hmm.
It's just, it's unbelievable. And of course, the media is not going to talk about this. They don't want to bring attention to it, but they'll tell you about cryptocurrencies real super quick.
Oh,
Notice that?
and a lot of them, and digital gold. They will always refer. If gold is so worthless, why are you talking about digital gold? We've been trained out of it, but it's in our vernacular. Good as gold, the goose with the golden eggs, digital gold. It's
nothing beats the real thing.
Exactly. I
have a question for you, Lynette. So there's so much chitter chatter going out there about Basel III.
Yes.
And if you think about all the debts that's on the books, and we know the ECB, which is the European Central Bank, is on the verge of collapsing. So if the Great Reset is going to be successful, they cannot afford for the European Central Bank to collapse. If it does, it's over for the whole entire plan for the rest of the world. So my thought is this: with the ECB struggling and the credibility of central banks, really nobody has any faith in them whatsoever, with all the debt that they've taken on, in your opinion, with Basel III coming, do you think we will see a revaluation of gold?
This is a hard one. I think they're going to postpone it. Because it would collapse. It would collapse all of the markets. I mean, the LBMA and the World Gold Council sent this letter, to the BIS. You can't do it because of this and all of the reasons why they couldn't do it. And that's because the whole world would then, the public, because everybody that's in the system already knows this anyway. But the public would then realize that the emperor has no clothes. They don't have the gold to cover all those paper contracts. They don't have it. We're the silver. Right. I mean, it's, gold's a primary currency metal. Silver's a secondary currency metal. We don't want you in currency, in real currency. We want you in our garbage, and we want to be able to program it and control it. So, I know that that's coming up. I think it's going to have to be postponed, or at least parts of it are going to have to be postponed to avoid this collapse.
Well, when I was looking,
with them moving everything to a tier 1 instead of where it is right now, allows them to. The smart move would be, you can't raise interest rates to clear a lot of debt. They carry a lot of debt on their own books. So my thought is, you're going to have to clear a lot of this debt. How is this going to happen? What about the shorts you need to cover, both in gold and silver? Although I noticed that a lot of silver short contracts have been disappearing. They've been one way or another covering them a little bit. But my thought is, beyond that, if this happens on due 28th, they only have one option. Well, they're going to have to revalue gold.
Well, like I was telling you,
about
Pimpy,
resetting the ratio to 20-1. Is that what it is for gold and silver?
I think so.
I mean, now
I can't see it happening.
When I was looking this up, Pimpy, when we were talking about it earlier, I saw something about it was supposed to be in 2015. Then they postponed it till January 1st of 2022, and then you told me that they were doing something June 28th. So it really wouldn't surprise me if they completely just keep pushing, kicking the can.
I can't hear you.
You can't hear me?
You.
Wait.
What?
Lynette, can you hear him?
I can hear both of you. Yes.
Yeah.
Can you hear me?
Try to unplug your stuff. You probably can't even hear me say that.
Can you hear me, Pimpy?
I can't hear either one of you guys.
I don't think so. Okay.
I'm gonna text him and have
okay. Yeah, plug it back in. Unplug.
He's probably using his phone too.
I think he's unplugging something. But I agree with you that I just think they're going to have to postpone it. They're going to have to just keep postponing, just like they're doing with the LIBOR. And
so was the LIBOR postponed?
Absolutely. They ran the test in October and, discovered, no, we can't do this. So they did little parts of it, the minor parts of it, but the rest of it has been postponed till 2023.
Can you hear us, Pimpy?
I hear you now, but I had to undo my headset.
Okay. Well, it sounds a lot more muffled, but yeah, I'm glad that you can hear me. I just texted you saying I can
hear me now. You said it sounds muffled.
Yeah, we could have heard you the whole time and hear us for whatever reason. Was somebody trying to call you or something, possibly?
It's a deep state.
Deep state, yeah. So, what are your thoughts, Lynette, with the repo markets and all this talk about the reverse repurchases and stuff? What are your thoughts about what's going on with this?
Oh my God. Okay. So the Fed creates the problems, right? Then they got to figure out how once these problems emerge and become noticeable, then they have to try and figure out how, not really to undo it, but they created all of this liquidity in the banking system. We were talking about the monetary velocity before. You've got the savings rate up at 27.3% because the public does not know, is uncertain about their future. So they're saving in preparation of it. And that has really created a huge problem for the banks. And so now they have to try and drain that liquidity from the markets. But if they drain enough liquidity from the markets, then there's not enough liquidity to keep it supported. I mean, it's just a convoluted mess. It's a convoluted mess. And yeah. And it, goes back to what you were saying that George was talking about earlier, that it's just a shell game to push it from this book to that book, to this book, to that book, without really doing anything about it.
Well, real quick, I want to let people know that we're talking about George Gammon, Rebel Capitalist. So if people want to, make sure you check. I did an interview with him on Friday that I encourage people to check out. And then we talk about this video series that he's doing, because he's done 2 live videos where he's talked about it. And then he put out a whiteboard video on Friday. And it's basically talking about the smoke and mirrors game being exposed, that the QE itself isn't real, and the banks and the Federal Reserve are all just basically sharing a balance sheet. Nothing is changing when transactions are being done. Not the way that they would be happening in our reality, like in our normal accounting debit credit system. When you take something away, it's just, we've gotten to this point of time now where we've gone like beyond Twilight Zone. I mean, when I first met you, Lynette, we were talking about this stuff.
Right.
And then I was, I've had the pleasure of continually talking to you for several years. And, now we're in the midst of this monstrous mess. And it's just like, I don't even know how long you're going to be able to make this, let this continue. And I'm just trying to warn people. Do you think that the ending is coming soon, or can they keep this thing going for a little bit?
Well, they can keep it going as long as the public remains confident and engaged in the system. And I think they want to keep it going until they're ready with the CBDCs, the central bank digital currencies. And I did want to make another point before we left that, the shell game, because the Treasury is doing the same thing. They had all of this excess liquidity on their balance sheet that they had to get rid of based on the funding for the COVID. And so they started running off the balance sheet at the same time that they started adding the debt onto the balance sheet to deal with the COVID. So it's like, if you and I were doing it, we would go to jail.
Yeah, yes, thank you.
Right? We would go to jail for doing this kind of behavior. So it's not really surprising that you're getting the same thing out of the Treasury, the same thing out of the Federal Reserve, because they can create all the programs that they want to, big, huge laundry list, but the reality is they're out of tools.
Yeah, I would completely agree.
We started to see silver run this morning, and then all of a sudden, magically, I think it dropped 70 or 80 cents within a matter of a minute.
It's still around 28, though, isn't it?
Woohoo! The massive global silver shortage. Silver's at $28 an ounce. The premiums still don't take it up that high. It's ridiculous. Yeah. Mm-hmm. That makes all
people tell me when I'm comparing cryptos to silver, I say, so silver is like grabbing a beach ball, holding it underneath the water. Eventually it's going to pop up. Crypto is like taking a helium balloon and letting it float in the air. Eventually it's going to come down.
Yeah. Having said that, what we don't know yet is which one of these beasts is going to be allowed to survive. That's what we really don't know. And I find this really interesting because I see this battle royale between Wall Street and the government and the central banks happening right now. And who's more powerful?
Lynette, do you think governments are going to allow cryptocurrencies to continue to exist?
Well, according to the Bank for International Settlements Money Flower, there is a small area for private cryptocurrencies, much smaller than the area for commodity money, gold and silver, and certainly dwarfed by the CBDCs.
That was back when you were covering the idea of China testing out a new crypto-based SDR. Did you ever find out anything more? Did you ever continue?
Digital yuan?
No, it was something different.
No, this has not changed actually. And the SDR, I mean, the SDR is digital, period. The question is whether or not they're going to allow you and I as private citizens to actually hold digital SDRs. And I haven't seen a final piece on that yet, but that is still something that's being discussed. Just like putting a certain level of gold into the SDR, which they cannot do it till they get rid of all of this debt. And that's why the revaluation of gold, I don't see it this soon. I don't see it this soon.
But it's going to play a huge part in what's going on. I had somebody in my group on Facebook say, you can't revalue gold. I was like, what do you mean you can't? They go, well, nobody has the power to revalue gold. I was like, what are you talking about? You don't. Trust me, they're going to do it. They have to wipe out a lot of the debt that's on the books.
Well, no, but
listen, wrong in that thinking, Lynette?
Listen to this, Pimpy, because this is a good question. Like I had asked you this before, Lynette, but we're kind of at this point now. So if we're talking about a depression coming, and we're talking about something that would exceed what was experienced in the 30s with the great 1929, the Great Depression, and all that. Could we potentially see, as I asked you before, a confiscation of gold?
I believe so.
Instead of revaluating it, why not just take everybody's gold, give them digits, and then you don't have to reevaluate because you got more gold to make up what you needed.
You got the first part right. Desperate governments do desperate things, but they have to revalue the gold because that is how a reset is done. What are they going to do? Revalue it against Bitcoin? I don't think so. They have to take something that has no intrinsic value, which is the fiat money, it's used in one place, and revalue it against something that is all intrinsic value, which is gold and silver, frankly, but which is gold, because gold has the broadest base of utility and the broadest base of buyer. It's used across the entire spectrum of the global economy. So that's how it's done. That's really how they get rid of the debt, and they can then go into the new system. And, you know, my feeling is that history is definitely going to repeat itself. I mean, it's happened well over 4,800 times. I guess this time could be different, but I don't think so. You know, I mean, what are they going to revalue it against? And then they have to have a component of gold in it to justify, to get the people's confidence back. Because by the time the crash and everybody loses everything that they have in fiat money, you know, products, etc., by the time that happens, there is absolutely no confidence left.
I did a video earlier. I think it was actually late last night. I said they might try a different type of confiscation. They're not going to go door to door, but you know what they might do? They might jack the value up high enough to where people are going to want to part with their physical gold and silver. And I keep warning people, do not do that. It's one thing if you want to, after the change in value, cash in enough silver or gold to pay off all your debt. But do not part with everything that you have. That is a mistake. But that is a form, in my opinion, of confiscation, that they put it to a level so high because they know, what are you exchanging it for? that crappy fiat dollar that's not worth anything. So why would you want to take something of value and exchange it for something that has no value whatsoever? Am I wrong? Am I thinking?
Well, that happened. That happened with the Confiscation Act, though. They gave everybody $20 for their ounce of gold, and you can. And as Lynette's talked about with inflation, this is a great example of inflation, because that $20 was then reevaluated. That $20 ounce of gold was reevaluated to $35 an ounce. But today you can, or back then, you could buy a good suit for $20, and now you could buy a good suit with an ounce of gold.
Right.
But you can't buy a suit for $20.
Right. But let's also talk about the confiscation, because people think that that's a single event. And while it can indeed be a single, no, it isn't a single event. Inflation is confiscation. Price suppression is a form of confiscation, right? So you can use all of the different names that you want to, but by suppressing the real value of gold and silver, in essence, and getting you to turn away, that's manipulation, but getting you to turn away from it and go into the products and the areas that they want you to go into, that's perception management. That is a form of confiscation.
Like cryptocurrencies?
Somebody, and you can look at it at that point, man. Me and you're going to get in a fight, Pimpy.
Because I'm kind of like between the two guys. I don't own any, and everybody knows that I don't own any.
I sold all mine and put it right into precious metals.
But I will tell you,
because we do not know who is going to survive this. I
really want to have faith in cryptocurrencies. I do. I love the whole concept behind it. Don't get me wrong.
Right.
It's not that I hate cryptocurrencies. I just don't trust it.
Correct.
I really
well,
don't.
you should.
But I said maybe when investors settle, there might be a handful of cryptocurrencies left over.
This is a
maybe
tool.
Bitcoin, but for sure Ethereum.
This is a technology, is a tool. It can be used for however it's being used. We need more people out there who are creating code for good purposes and are using the blockchain for good purposes, because it can be used.
That's the blockchain. That's not the cryptocurrency.
But you can't have it without the other. You can't have crypto without blockchain. Blockchain is the underlying technology. And it's the same. What I'm saying is, even with the cryptocurrencies, because I've introduced you to projects, whether or not Bitcoin was created by NSA, whether it was a plan by central banks, any of that stuff, it's open source code, and people can take that technology and run with it, change it. You can audit the code. You can get it out of the government's hands. So there is going to be some value to something like that. Now, I wanted to ask you, Lynette, because somebody was asking a couple times in the comments about being confused that if we buy gold and silver, when the crap hits the fan and we don't sell it, what's the point of buying it? When we get to the point, where do we get to the point where we sell it? And he's curious about your thoughts, because you've talked about this on your channel many times. Right. And I encourage people to make sure they are checking out your channel. And again, links are going to be down below.
Yes. And it's actually really simple. It's not all about gold and silver. What it is about maintaining your wealth, and also sustaining your current standard of living, and then positioning for those opportunities. Because right now, the assets that survive, like real estate, it can go up, it could go down, but it's not going to evaporate into the ether. But right now, valuation-wise, it's way up here, while gold is way down here. This will flip-flop. And then there will come a point when we see what's called a cup formation. And it does. I mean, it could be jagged. It's not going to be smooth. But you'll see this cup formation occurring, which is when it is severely undervalued. Income producing assets will be severely undervalued, while gold will probably be overvalued, because things always overshoot to the downside or the upside. That's when you capture some of those gains and you convert it into those income producing, severely undervalued assets, like gold and silver are severely undervalued now. So if you watch, you'll see when I'm doing it for myself, and and then you do whatever you feel is comfortable for you to do. But I'm building dynastic wealth for my family. That's my.
I use this example all the time. I said I think it was the 1930s when silver got up to, or not silver, but gold was like a $30, $35 an ounce. I said, look, back then houses were like $3,500. So it took like 175 ounces of gold to buy a house. If you never took away from that 175, or you never added to it, and you had that same 175 ounces of gold today, guess what? You can buy a house still. That's how you know gold is worth investing into, because it preserves the wealth. And again, nothing out there, there's nothing out there like it. There really isn't.
Exactly. And they have never been able to duplicate it. So, I mean, they've tried a lot, but you know, cryptocurrencies don't do that. And I don't want to say that I hate them, because I just think that the function that they're used for is to keep you away from real money. And
Yes.
I can see your perspective on that, and I am a proponent of not going cashless, going all digital. So I mean, I'm kind of that midline, but I see the potential goodness of how the blockchain and cryptocurrencies can be used, and I want people to know that there's a huge difference between digital currencies and cryptocurrencies. So people need to educate themselves a little bit in the chat. I would definitely encourage you to do that. Lynette, someone was mentioning that what we're talking about with gold and silver kind of reminds them of what's happening right now with the housing market and real estate. Mm-hmm. What are your thoughts right now about what's happening in the real estate housing market? And could this be what brings us this whole system down?
Okay, this is what I see. You know, I want to go back to 2008 for a minute, and actually earlier than that, when everybody was encouraged to go out and get as big a house as they could on the variable rate mortgages. You know, it used to be a mom and pop industry, and that was a way that individuals could develop wealth. Then we saw the transition from the mom and pop started to take place in 2008, and you had big corporates coming into that market. Now, essentially, they are the market. And since they really, you know, if they go in and they buy a huge tract of land and they do all of this building, you think they're holding the risk on their books? You think the banks are holding the risks on their books? No, 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 no. They have turned these into securities and sold them to pension plans and mutual funds, and, you know, the individuals
put it back on us.
Exactly. So for them, it's a win-win. And what I see is the final decimation of the public in home ownership and real estate ownership in a way that is pretty despicable and disgusting. It's just like the destruction of the middle class.
Quick question, Lynette. I've been trying to encourage my subscribers. I said, if you have a 401k, IRA, to be on the safe side, I want to encourage them to take, 25, 30% of their holdings, if not all of it, but 25, at least 30%, move it into precious metals. I said, if nothing happens to the stock market, then you'll be fine. But if what's going to happen that we think is going to happen, like in 2008, it wiped out everybody's retirement. Some people had to go back to work. I'm saying not only does it protect you against inflation, but if the market should crash, you're protected by having gold and silver.
I mean, yes, the challenge is that may not be an option for people that are in like their 401k, right? They may not have the ability to actually invest in physical gold and silver. For people that do it inside of an IRA, I'm sorry, but if you don't hold it, you don't own it. And it doesn't matter what your perception is, because when you're talking about confiscation, overt confiscation, because we know there's lots of covert confiscation that's been happening, it's pretty easy to go in and do a big sweep in IRAs. So personally, and again, this may not be an option for everybody, but I had a SEP IRA and I cashed it in and converted it all into gold and silver.
That's what I did. I took all my stocks, bonds, 401ks, and my IRAs, gone. It's literally all of my savings, like 96, 97% of it, precious metals. I only hold enough money in my bank account to pay my bills, But in my safe, I have about 6 months worth of money plus 10% for miscellaneous. I do not trust the bank. So when I get my monies, I turn around and flip it right into precious metals.
Yep. I do the same thing. I agree with you, Pimpy, 100%. That has not always been true. That will not always be true in the future. But going back to that question, you know, in my original strategy, because I've been studying currency since 1987, and you see the same patterns that just happen over and over again. And, you know, I had thought that after the final reset, that I would convert a chunk of my gold back into the new currency. But considering that was before I saw the direction they were taking the new currency, which is no privacy, no choices. And, you know, I mean, think about it. Gold and silver are private, completely out of the system.
Yes.
That's why they're bad. It's bad because of that, Lynette. You're not allowed privacy. You're not allowed to be out of the system. You're supposed to comply. You're supposed to listen to Big Brother. Remember, it's 1984.
Exactly. Now, dollars, you can hold the physical dollar out of the system, and that does preserve your principal, but then you've got the central banks that are controlling the inflation, and we're losing control of the inflation, which is what I think. And now you have the new digital currency that's coming in that's programmable. So they can say it's good until Tuesday at 8:39, and boy, you better spend it before Tuesday at 8:39 or it just evaporates. Is that really what you want to work for? Is that real? Because you're trading your labor for that.
I try to warn my subscribers. I don't want them to suffer the same fate as a lot of people that did back in 2008. There were people who were retired, lost everything, and had to go back to work. And I'm telling them, look, just in the worst case scenario, or in the best case scenario, nothing happens. You still have your retirement. You still have your gold and silver you can live on. Either way. But if in a worst case scenario, the market does crash, at least not all your money is tied up in a fiat investment.
It's true, Pimpy, because all you're really looking at is really nothing. It's really all smoke and mirrors, and it is designed to transfer your wealth away from you and into other hands. And I say, let's be the hands that the wealth transfers to, because you can't stop it. This is a freight train that's going down this track, and the ability to stop it is long gone. So you need to get on the side of where you can benefit from it. And that's what gold and silver really does for you. And then you can buy whatever cryptocurrency survives. And then afterwards, you know, no, I plan on holding a lot more of my wealth in gold and silver long after the reset. And then I can always convert it, because history tells me 100% of the time, I can always convert my gold or silver into any currency, and therefore any good or any service.
Totally agree.
You know what I did, Lynette? So I'm having my house remodeled. So my construction guy comes over, cost me almost $15,000 to redo the roof. I was like, man, I asked him if he'll take silver. He's like, silver? I'll take silver. I said, so I told him, look, I know you're charging me this amount. This silver right now is worth $11,000. He said, I'll take the $11,000 in silver. Since then, it's gone up big time. He's like, that was a good choice. I go, yeah, you're lucky. I didn't want to, but people don't realize you can use gold. You can use silver.
I've actually
like a currency
thing. Yeah. And there have been times when I've offered, I said, okay, you can have the fiat if you want the fiat, or you can have the gold. What would you like? And, you know, I'll be honest with you, most of the time they want the fiat because they have no comprehension of real money.
Yeah, well,
no, my contractor now, almost everything he does, he goes, can we do this in silver? He'll take the lesser because he knows silver is going to go up, because he does watch my videos. And I go, okay, so now he's getting slick. But now I'm at a point now I don't even want to part with any of my precious metals. Exactly. I have about 8,000 ounces in silver and about 20 ounces in gold right now. I think that's not doing too bad considering what's coming up. Hopefully that's enough. I never feel like I have enough. I hate that feeling.
You never do. You never do. I don't feel like I have enough either, to tell you the truth. I never feel like I have enough. But all you can do is take advantage of them suppressing the price. I mean, to me, it's a gift. It's a huge gift, because we all know that in reality, it is worth a lot more than the fiat dollars, because a rising gold price is an indication of a failing fiat. They don't want you to know that. They want the stock market to go up and the cryptocurrencies to go up, because then you're distracted. That's where you're holding your wealth, and that leaves it vulnerable.
Risky assets.
Lynette,
in your opinion, how important are fractional gold and silver? Not 1 ounces, but maybe smaller. How important are those?
I think they're critical, actually, because it is harder to break, a 1 ounce coin apart than it is to put a couple of, say, pre-64 dimes together or what have you. So
I've been encouraging my subscribers to buy more fractionals right now. Get a nice chunk of them so you can use them for bartering if you need to.
Well, and look, I created a strategy based upon all of these repeatable patterns. And fortunately, there are a lot of very smart people at ITM, and we meet regularly. So they've taken my strategy. I've taken it. We all work together as a team anyway, and we make it better and better and better. The amount of fractional silver and gold should be based upon your current cost of living, your current real estate taxes, depends on your health needs. Hopefully nobody has any chronic illnesses, but for those that do, second to food, medicine becomes a huge challenge. So you need to put yourself in a position where you can always procure what you need to maintain your standard of living. But I don't know that you need like a whole lot more than that. So I'm comfortable with 10 years worth. Okay.
And I had a question for you.
Sure.
Rhodium, right? If you had 1 ounce of rhodium today, would you keep it or would you exchange it, in your opinion, into gold and silver?
I would exchange it, because this is a currency life cycle event, and therefore I'm in my currency metals, gold and silver. And then beyond
the same page.
Totally. But beyond that barterability piece, because for me, what's important is creating a foundation, not only of income that I can never outlive, but with what they have in mind, hey, you'll own nothing and be happy. That is not okay with me for my children, and especially my grandchildren, great-grand, etc. So for me personally, I'm really focused on dynastic wealth, which is wealth that lasts in families at least 300 years. And that's what I'm working on building using, and gold is, it's got 3 legs, and gold is one of those legs. And you could actually do all 3 with it, because it's real estate, rare collectibles, and gold. And, so you can have a gold and silver mine. You can have a very rare gold or silver coin, or truly rare early coin. And then obviously your monetary gold, just your basic gold that can help you accumulate those other 2 pieces, as well as just maintain your standard of living and position into those other income and wealth building assets when they are cheap, which they are not
outside
now.
Of the system, though.
Well, no, even inside of the system, like, we don't know what corporations are going to survive all of the debt loads that they've taken on. We don't know which ones will yet.
Right.
Yeah.
Most probably won't. But when those that do survive it, they're going to be a whole lot cheaper at that point than they are right now. And so to position into some dividend paying stocks or corporations that actually survive this mess, sure, I intend to do that. Absolutely.
Oh, yeah.
Absolutely. So, and that is in this. It's not everything always has to be out of the system, but a properly, truly diversified portfolio you've got hard assets, you've got tangible assets, and maybe you have some intangible assets as well. And it's really a combination. It isn't, well, I own stocks and I own bonds and I own cryptos. Now I'm diversified.
Right.
No, because it's all intangible. You're not really diversified. But that's what we've been taught. And it's garbage. It's not true. It's just what
Thank you for saying that.
You're welcome.
Those people need to hear it. I mean, that's why I feel very privileged to be able to have these conversations with you, Lynette, because I mean, you're one of the best educators when it comes to this stuff. But now I know we're coming up on our hour with you. I want to take this time real quick before we end the video to promote what you do as Chief Market Analyst over at ITM Trading and what ITM offers as far as your services. And then as far as what people can expect if they're not familiar with your YouTube channel, which we encourage people to make sure they're subscribed to.
Thank you, because we are very keen on education. It takes more time to educate a client, but we want you to be able to do what is in your best interest first, regardless of what anybody else thinks, including me, regardless of even what I think. You've got to do that. So my work is directly all about translating financial noise so that you understand what is really happening, and then you actually can make choices that support your best interest. At ITM, everybody there has been trained on the strategy. And as I said earlier, we meet all of the time. We meet very regularly. And we discuss all of these things. So we're always trying to figure out how to do this better and better and better. But this is we have a very hands-on approach, because anybody can, throw you into gold and silver.
Right.
That doesn't take rocket science, but it's knowing what kind of gold and silver and how much of it. And that's based upon your personal particular needs and goals. Not everybody cares about developing dynastic wealth. Maybe they don't have children or something like that. So that would not be relevant for them. Okay, well, whatever your personal goals and circumstances are, we've got spreadsheets, we've got all the algorithms, we've got everything set up to support your goals and what is in your best interest first. And that's what we do. And it's a commitment. It could be a lifelong commitment, but it is at least through this trend cycle. I do not plan on leaving until this trend is over. So maybe I'm in my 80s or 90s or when that happens. I don't know, but I'm not going anywhere.
Well, I appreciate everything you do. And I love the idea of that, what you've been trying to encourage people to survive and thrive. Your motto, the whole idea of cover your assets. I always want to pause when I say that part, but
so do I.
I love it. That's great.
Actually, so do I. I can't really, I'll be honest with you, I cannot take credit for that one. That was really Ryan's idea, and I just loved it as soon as he said it.
I love it.
Oh, yeah.
Well, look, I said, in talking to my subscribers, I said, look, you guys, if I had Pimpy University, Lynette Zang would be my gold and silver person. Trust me, she would be my gold and silver professor. She has a way of explaining things to you like you're a second grader. Simplifies it so that you can follow it and understand it. And I've encouraged many people to go over to your channel. You are an awesome person, and I'm grateful for you.
Well, I really appreciate it, because that is my goal. So, and I'm constantly working at it. Hopefully I will just get better and better and better as time goes on.
Well, I'll definitely be sure to get in touch with Jacqueline and Edgar to get us scheduled for our next conversation, which we always look forward to. So Pimpy, for some reason, I thought Pimpy knew about this, but he didn't find out, I don't think, until Friday. It was Thursday or Friday night that I told him that he realized.
Well, thank you for being here, Pimpy.
Thank you. He knows. Like when Lynette, you need to tell me, because I want to be on. So I appreciate it.
My pleasure. One of these days we have to do this in person, though.
Most definitely.
We talked about that. I would love that. I'm
let me wrap
often
up
in Phoenix for one thing or another, And me and him talked about this. He's like, we got to do that one of these days. I would
We
love
do.
that.
Let's chat real quick. I want to go ahead and wrap up the video on this end. That way we can just have a few minutes with Lynette before she does her
Yeah, if we
lunch.
could talk offline, that'd be great. Real quick.
So, ladies and gentlemen, thank you again. Depending on where you're watching this, make sure you subscribe to not both of our, but all three of our YouTube channels, Rice TVX, Pimpy's Investment Chat, and ITM Trading. Links are down below. If you're interested in buying some gold and silver, check out itmtrading.com. Again, all the information we talked about is linked down below. We appreciate you tuning in. Make sure you smash that like button. And as always, I encourage you to be the change by practicing change.